Being a whistleblower can be daunting and dangerous at the best of times, but if you dare to blow the whistle on UFOs or aliens, it can be downright deadly, and maybe cost you your life. The following people try to expose UFOs and aliens, and you have to ask the question, did it cost them their lives? These are 9 UFO whistleblowers who have died. Number 9. James Forrestal. James V. Forrestal was America's first Secretary of Defense, and reliable sources state that Forrestal was one of the initial members of the newly formed Majestic 12. Forrestal believed that the public should be told the truth about the UFO problem. When he began to talk to leaders of the opposition party and leaders of the Congress about the alien problem, he was asked to resign by President Truman. He expressed his fears to a number of people and believed that he was being watched. Forrestal later was said to have suffered a mental breakdown and was committed against his will to Bethesda Naval Hospital, where he was held under Marine Guard. Many feared that Forrestal would begin to talk again and therefore had to be isolated and discredited. On May the 22nd, 1949, 7 weeks after his admission to the hospital, Forrestal plunged from a 16th floor window of the hospital to his death. Allegations arose that agents threw Forrestal out the window and he plummeted to his death. Forrestal is considered to have been one of the earliest victims of the great UFO cover-up, which started after the Roswell crash of 1947. Number 8. Phil Schneider. Phil Schneider was born in 1947 at Bethesda Naval Hospital. Philip Schneider claimed that his father, Captain Oscar Schneider, was involved with the infamous Philadelphia experiment. Philip claimed to be an ex-government structural engineer who was involved in building underground military bases around the country, and to be one of only 3 people to survive the 1979 incident between the alien greys and US military forces at the Dulce underground base. For 2 years prior to his death, Philip Schneider had been on a lecture tour talking about government cover-ups, black budgets and UFOs. Philip stated in his lecture that in 1954, under the Eisenhower administration, the federal government decided to circumvent the Constitution and form a treaty with extraterrestrials. The treaty was called the 1954 Greater Treaty. Officials agreed that for extraterrestrial technology, the Greys could test their implant techniques on select citizens. However, the extraterrestrials had to inform the government who had been abducted and subject to the implants. Slowly over time, the aliens altered the bargain, abducting and implanting thousands of people without reporting back to the government. Philip Schneider's ex-wife believes that Philip was murdered because he publicly revealed the truth about the USA government's involvement with UFOs. Number 7. Ronald Rummel. Ron Rummel was an ex-Air Force intelligence agent and publisher of the Alien Digest. On August 6, 1993, Rummel allegedly shot himself in the mouth with a pistol. However, no blood was found on the pistol barrel and the handle of the weapon was free of fingerprints. Also, the suicide note left by the deceased was written by a left-handed person. Rummel was right-handed. Perspiration on the body smelled like sodium pentothal, a truth serum. The Alien Digest ran to 7 limited editions, but are now almost impossible to acquire. It appears that Ron Rummel's magazine was touching on sensitive issues, such as the predatory-prey aspect of the alien-human relationship and the use of humans as food and recyclable body parts. Did Rummel cross a forbidden line? Interestingly enough, one of Rummel's friends was Phil Schneider, and the two had been collaborating. Number 6. Dean Warwick. On Saturday, October the 7th, Dean was to speak at a UFO conference in Blackpool called Probe International and was the last speaker of the afternoon. It was hoped that Dean would blow the whistle about his experiences and knowledge regarding the NSA, missing children and extraterrestrials. Dean had already gone public and completed an interview a couple of weeks earlier with investigative journalist Dave Starbuck. At that stage, Dean had only talked about a fraction of what he really knew. When Dean was only minutes into his talk on stage, he collapsed unconscious on the floor. He had stopped breathing and an ambulance was called, but Dean had died on stage. When Dean collapsed on the floor, a woman witnessed the man with dark hair slip out of the hall. She followed this man, who then proceeded to walk down the stairs, whistling merrily to himself, get into a car and make a phone call, where he was then seen laughing down the phone. Number 5. Ron Johnson. Ron Johnson was once MUFON's Deputy Director of Investigations, and another job was with the Institute of Advanced Studies, purportedly working on UFO propulsion systems. Apparently, he held high security clearances, travelled frequently between San Antonio and White Sands, and had attended 2 secret NATO meetings. One of these meetings was said to deal with ET communications. On June the 9th, 1994, while attending a Society of Scientific Exploration meeting in Austin, Texas, Johnson died suddenly amid very strange circumstances. He was 43 years old and excellent in health, as he had just passed a recent physical examination. During a slideshow, several people sitting close to him heard a gasp. When the lights were turned back on, Johnson was slumped over in his chair, his face purple, with blood oozing from his nose. What killed Ron Johnson, as it is quite easy today to induce strokes through chemicals or pulsed radiation? It is also easy to induce a heart attack. The biggest probability is that Ron Johnson was eliminated by a quick-acting toxin or maybe a nerve agent. The autopsy has been officially classified as inconclusive. Number 4. James McDonald. James Edward McDonald was an American physicist and was known for his research regarding UFOs. McDonald was a senior physicist at the Institute for Atmospheric Physics. McDonald campaigned in support of expanding UFO studies during the mid and late 1960s, arguing that UFO represented an important unsolved mystery which had not been adequately studied by science. McDonald interviewed over 500 UFO witnesses, uncovered many important government UFO documents, and gave important presentations of UFO evidence. He testified before Congress during the UFO hearings of 1968, where he said, "UFOs are entirely real and we do not know what they are because we have laughed them out of court. Possibility that these are extraterrestrial devices, that we are dealing with surveillance from some advanced technology is a possibility I take very seriously. I've become convinced that the scientific community has been casually ignoring as nonsense a matter of extraordinary scientific importance." Dr. James McDonald died in 1971 purportedly of a gunshot wound to the head, and died in mysterious circumstances, leading some people to believe he was murdered. Number 3. Stephen Schiff. Stephen Schiff was an American politician for the 1st District of New Mexico, but also had an interest in the UFO phenomena. Congressman Stephen Schiff made a major effort to uncover the truth behind the Roswell crash story. Schiff pressed the GAO in the 1990s and demanded financial records that would have proven the existence of the Roswell incident in July 1947. He was stonewalled and eventually silenced. Unfortunately, he died of cancer in 1998 before he could accomplish his task. The question raised is that there have been an alarming number of people who have died suddenly and mysteriously from cancer who were involved in UFO research. Number 2. Dr. John Mack. Dr. John Mack was an American psychiatrist, writer, and professor at Harvard Medical School. He was a Pulitzer Prize-winning biographer and a leading authority on the spiritual or transformational effects of alleged alien abduction experiences, and was prepared to tell stories of abduction, and hundreds of people who claim they were abducted still revere him. John Mack was killed in a road accident in North London in 2004. Number 1. Orange Hollandia. Orange Hollandia was a Brazilian Air Force operation commander who was sent by the government to interview witnesses of an apparent UFO invasion. In the months of October to December of 1977 and during the first half of 1978, the Brazilian state of Pará was invaded by UFOs. Bright objects in several shapes and sizes flew over the Marajo Bay region at low altitude, a few meters above the trees, and fired strong light beams at the people, who described the UFO pilots as small alien beings. Part of this report came to the public through an interview Hollandia gave to a Brazilian UFO magazine, where he told them that he was an operation commander sent by the government to investigate the facts. Hollandia committed suicide in 1997.